Can you think of the last time you used nonverbal communication cues to convey your message? I remember taking my son to the grocery store earlier in the week, and he would repeatedly put new things in the cart that I did not ask him to, things that he wanted, and I would have to send him back to put those items back. Well, halfway through our grocery experience, I got fed up and I just gave him a look, and he knew immediately to put that item back on the shelf and to straighten up and correct his behavior without me having to say a word. That is an example of nonverbal communication. I conveyed my message and he understood it completely. He went and he put the item back. Communication can be defined as a source transmitting a message to a receiver in order to achieve an intended result. There are two types of communication: nonverbal communication and verbal communication. Verbal communication is the words that we speak. Nonverbal communication is our tone of voice as well as our body language. Body language makes up about 55% of communication. Tone of voice is about 38%. And verbal communication is about 7% of communication. So from that, you can infer that nonverbal communication takes up a big chunk of communication. Keep in mind, however, that culture plays a big role in how nonverbal communication is interpreted. Something that might be acceptable in America may be perceived as rude in a different country. You might be thinking, how does nonverbal communication affect me? How is nonverbal communication used in my everyday life? Well, let's use a conversation, for example. Say that I'm having a conversation with somebody and I'm speaking with that person, I'm turned to them and they're looking around, they're not paying attention to anything that I'm saying. That might be interpreted as rude. It might be interpreted as disinterested. Maybe they're hiding something. Also, the amount of space between two people is a form of nonverbal communication. If I'm speaking with somebody and we're close to each other, there's not really that much space. They're in my bubble, I'm in their personal bubble. That can be interpreted as somebody that is maybe close to me, somebody that I know and I'm comfortable with. Also, somebody that is maybe further away from me, somebody that I'm speaking with and there's a lot of space in between, that might be somebody that I know on a more business level, somebody that I know through a friend, or maybe somebody that I'm just not comfortable with. Also, facial expressions are a type of nonverbal communication. A smile is definitely interpreted differently than a frown. Also, posture can be taken into account. Somebody that is standing upright is going to be interpreted differently than somebody maybe that's slouched over in their posture. Nonverbal communication is not only for everyday life. Nonverbal communication reaches every aspect of our life. I can use business, for example. Businesses have actually started researching nonverbal communication. Corporate America has become increasingly interested with their human capital because a lot of corporations and big business have started to have a lot of team projects and group projects implemented. And what that means is a lot more communication between these large groups. So they need these groups to work together well, and they don't want a whole bunch of miscommunication. And since nonverbal communication is a big chunk of how people communicate, they have done a lot of research in how to get their employees to better communicate effectively. Also, the interview process has been reevaluated. Hiring managers are now being taught to look for not only that a resume looks appropriately, but in the interview what people are not saying opposed to what they are saying is speaking volumes, and they are tapping into that. Somebody who maybe is leaning forward during an interview, is smiling a lot more, shaking their head in agreement, and is making eye contact is perceived as being more interested in what the person is saying, and is considered more of an ideal candidate opposed to somebody who is maybe slouching in their chair, looking down at their nails, or has bad posture, hunched over, as well as what they're wearing. If somebody comes in and they're not looking the part, they're not dressed up for an interview, obviously they're not going to be chosen over somebody who is dressed up in business attire. So hopefully you have gained a better understanding of nonverbal communication and how it affects our everyday life, as well as in business. Thank you.